Dublin have won yet another All-Ireland final to complete their 4 in a row. Anthony Moyles, you've had some time now to digest it. What's your assessment?
Oh, what is my assessment? Probably, well, are they the greatest team ever to play? You know, should we actually be sitting here kind of privileged to actually see this and to witness it? I think we should be, because there's no doubt about it that they are. You know, obviously we weren't here in person to see the Kerry teams, but from watching them, you know, on video, etc., etc., I think these guys are. They're blowing teams away. They are the greatest, and it's you know what kind of I suppose why I'm maybe not as enthusiastic as I should be is the fact that just the game didn't actually spark into life until the last kind of 4, 5, 6 minutes, and I was hoping for a bit of a closer game to really test them, and I thought we were going to get that. Like, we both thought we were going to get that in the first kind of 15-20 minutes when Tyrone raced into that lead, but unfortunately, you know, just Dublin took over. They never panicked. They just stuck with their process, and eventually process and won the game handily, really. You know, 6 points. Could it have been more? Probably could have been, if a number of their substitutes weren't as selfish as they were. They probably could have won by 9 or 10. And that's why I was just saying they are so ruthless. Like, I mean, they punish mistakes like no other team. The second goal was actually the killer goal. Like, I mean, whether it was a penalty or not, you know, I've kind of looked at it now and you'd probably say yes, it probably was soft enough, but it was a penalty. But the second goal was absolute killer. The fact that I think it was, I can't remember actually who pushed the Johnny Cooper in the back, very, very soft free here under the Hogan stand right below us, and all of a sudden it was into Callahan. He did really well, picked out Scully, goal, and that was actually the real killer. It just, you know, I think Tyrone will really look at it and kick themselves. Like, I mean, they had, I think it was 12 wides. Their efficiency level was very, very poor. Dublin had 6 wides. I actually think they had more wides.
I saw the stats actually outside. I think something like Tyrone had 24 shots potentially on target from play, and only 9 went over.
Yeah. So they'd actually had 14 wides, you know, and when you look at it, so their efficiency level of actually shooting was below 50%, and Dublin's was over 75%. Like, that is what you need to get to. I think Dublin won 94% of their kickouts. That's phenomenal, like absolutely phenomenal. So yes, okay, Tyrone were conceding a kick out to a certain degree, but when Tyrone really tried to squeeze them, Dublin were still getting those out. Whereas we watched it here, and it's amazing to see it obviously from the position that we're in. Tyrone were under massive pressure every time they tried to kick out the ball, and it was always, it's like the dam, you know, it's going to break some occasion, and unfortunately it did, and Morgan kicked one straight down the middle that ended up being the penalty. And you just always got that sense that although Tyrone were playing well and they were turning over the ball, they were expending so much energy in chasing down Dublin fellas that at the end, to be honest, they were out on their feet.
The one bright spot for Tyrone out of this is that when you look at where they were at the start of the summer to where they are now, they have grown and evolved a lot. I was down the press area, there was a bit of consensus that there potentially is an All-Ireland in that team, just not now. Is that possible, though, when Dublin are the machine that they are, that other teams in the next few years will possibly come back in, the perennials, Mayo, the Kerrys?
Well, while I was here contemplating for the last while, I just did a quick thought on the ages, and there's a number of the Dublin guys who are 30 and plus, you know. Okay, you've got a number on the starting 15, but you've probably more of the back room, you know, the second string guys. You know, you would probably see it as, like, you know, Paul Flynn, Bernard, Michael Dara, McCauley, McMenamum, these guys, O'Gara, they're all pushing 30 and plus. They will come back. It's easier to come back to a winning team than to come back to a losing team. But Tyrone have an awful lot of young guys. You know, they've fellas in their early 20s. I'm not saying Dublin don't as well, but they've a lot of more fellas on the pitch, it seems. And I think a loss like that, just like the semi-final loss last year, will stand to them. So they were beaten by 3 by earlier on in the Super 8 by Dublin. They were beaten by 6 here today. Can they look to reduce it next year? Absolutely, I think they can. They need to probably unearth 1 or 2 more forwards. Lee Brennan came on, did okay, fluffed 2 really big chances when the momentum was with Tyrone, and that again is just that little bit of experience. After Tyrone got the goal, he had a chance of a score, probably snapped at it, where really they need another score to bring it back to 4, I think, or even 3 at that stage. So they'll learn from all that, you know what I mean. In the heat of the battle, it's easy for us up here and pick out certain things. Dublin have learned all of that stuff. They have gone through that process of, losing and winning matches and losing tight ones, and you have to lose tight ones to get there and then know that, okay, there's no panic. And the one thing you could sense, even when they were 5-1 down and potentially more, was there was no panic. They weren't running around, they weren't shouting at each other. It was very much, we'll get this back, and that is the situation. I asked you, I said, how long has it been since Dublin has been in this situation? And neither of us could remember it, but they just didn't worry about it. A point on the board after 15 or 16, 17 minutes, and then they finish with whatever it was. It really is. They're a phenomenal team, and it's hats off to them. Can the rest close the gap? I think they are closing the gap, but the problem is the game is evolving, and they are evolving the game, and they're nearly pushing the boundaries of the game all the time. So as you kind of get up to them, they've now brought it on another little bit step forward. So it really has to take someone, I think, rather than trying to replicate what they do, you have to kind of go a la Jim McGuinness, and you have to just really rip open the copybook and say, okay, we're going to do something completely different here next year to try and actually bring in a different style, and try to really punish them. And maybe the Kavanagh thing, full forward, I'm surprised they didn't bomb a lot more balls in. I'm surprised they didn't put him in there a bit earlier and actually just trying to rain balls in, because when they did it, they actually got a bit of joy off it. Now that's a very simple solution, but hey, you know what, it worked.
Finally and briefly, the legitimate discussion is there now about this Dublin team. Are they the best, greatest of all time? Do they have to win the 5 in a row to have that tag? I mean, do they have to do something that nobody else has done, despite the fact that it's probably harder than ever to win 4 in a row than it was in other previous generations?
Well, I remember when they won the first one, and then it was kind of everyone was saying how difficult it is to win 2 in a row. I remember that talk. People were looking at Donegal, and people were looking at certain teams and saying, oh, there's 2 in a row in this team, and then they were saying, oh no, it's very difficult because you take the foot off the gas until the league, and it's very hard to get players back up to that level. They completely stripped that away. So I remember reading things saying in the modern era, would people win 2 in a row? Then all of a sudden they did that, and then I was like, well, they certainly won't be able to win 3 in a row, and they've done that. So could they come back and do next year? Absolutely they could. I was kind of laughing, thinking maybe they should just keep the blue and navy on the SAM for next year, and or even just get Cluxton to make a speech for 2019, because honestly they are that far ahead. It's beholden everyone else now just to try to keep closing the gap, and maybe for teams and managers to hope that maybe Cluxton retires or something like that. Or maybe Cluxton missus might put her foot down and say, you're not playing next year, because you would genuinely have to hope that some of those key elements fall off the team. But I think we are looking at probably the greatest team, and especially in the era of football that it is, in preparation and everything that goes into it. This isn't anything against the 70s, but you probably only had a handful of teams that potentially could win.
Training twice a week.
Correct. Yeah. Who were professional about it, whereas now the levels have raised up so much and everyone's trying to complement each other and replicate each other. It is a phenomenal achievement by them.